Hey there, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Shane Snipes with Borough of Manhattan Community College. It is National Entrepreneurship Week here in 2018. And what I have been doing this week is talking to some new entrepreneurs, small entrepreneurs, large company entrepreneurs, people who are teaching entrepreneurship in various different programs. My goal is I really want folks to get a lot of well-rounded views about what entrepreneurship is. And I think that's the main goal of National Entrepreneurship Week as well. So if you have questions for us, make sure you hit us up on YouTube with the comment section there. We can answer those questions. You know me on social media. I'm all over the place. You can also always find us at eShip, BMCC. If you want to send us a direct note via Instagram or via Facebook. And of course, Kevin Horton, who's my guest today, he's going to have his own way of sort of presenting the things that he's doing. And you'll be able to send him messages too. Thanks so much for joining me today, Kevin.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's great to have you. So today the subject in this webinar is really to discuss what is personal branding and how do you brand small businesses. And I'm lucky to have Kevin Horton coming in. He runs his own consultancy with a group of experts who focus on small business entrepreneurship, small business entrepreneurs, micro companies, medium-sized companies, small companies. He's based out of New Jersey, but he comes in New York City, of course, because everyone in Jersey has to come to New York, right, Kevin?
Yes, of course. It's the Empire State.
It is. It's the Empire State. We bring everyone in. So today I want to talk with Kevin, and we're going to dive into what is this idea of personal branding. And beyond that, I want to find out from him, like how he started his whole business, what it was like to step out as a solo entrepreneur initially, and then build a team and then find clients and all those pieces to it. So I think it's going to be a really interesting conversation. Like I said, please send me your questions. My students always give me like a stack of questions for every class because it's an assignment. So I ask them to do it. And they come at me with all kinds of really cool questions. So we'll focus on those too. To start out, Kevin, I'd love for you to chat with the folks, my students, and really say, what are some of the ways that that you started out? What was your journey to get into this place? And really, talk to me from the very beginning. What was it like?
Okay, great. Well, I always had the entrepreneur flair. I always knew that I wanted to work for myself. Just didn't know in what respect that would be. So I kind of fell into this business. I used to be a ghostwriter. So I used to put people through college, like literally writing papers and stuff like that. So what happened was I had got an assignment from someone. She was I think she was going to Phoenix Online, and she was getting her master's. So she actually needed someone to write a business plan for her as a part of her course. So I ended up writing the business plan for her. She got an A, and she was like, the professor loved the business plan so much, he thought I should actually go forward with, with the business. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. That's great. She kind of like fell off the face of the earth. And I reached out to my friend who put us in contact with each other. And I'm like, hey, what happened to your friend? She's like, oh, she's in California doing that business that you wrote the business plan for. And I was like, really? So yeah, and she was actually in school for psychology.
Oh, wow. Wow. That's a cool way to think about it. We always get inspired to do this and we're motivated. Of course, I don't know how many of the papers my students have turned in you've written, but who knows? Who knows, right? I really am excited to find out when you are first starting out, what was the part where you got over the fear, where you stepped beyond I'm not sure I have the skill set that I need to have. Luckily, you had lots of practice writing. Yeah. Even putting together this business plan kind of put you off in a direction. So of that, did you build your own business plan first, or did you just sort of say, I know the parts and pieces?
I kind of went out because another part of that was me growing up here in New Jersey, and I'm in Teaneck, New Jersey. So seeing a lot of businesses go up and go down like really quickly, right? So I think the quickest that I've seen was a restaurant, and they were in business for only 6 months.
Yeah.
So just seeing a lot of struggling businesses around, seeing a lot of gentrification going on within the businesses, a lot of larger real estate companies moving in and pushing out these businesses that have been there for 10, 20 years, right? I just kind of want to help, how can I help them, sustain, the change that's around them, right? So I started reaching out to those smaller businesses, those mom and pop stores, and trying to help them, move their inventory from, just being a physical brick and mortar location to, probably selling some things online and getting some building some revenue that way. Because if no one walks past your store, how do we know that you exist, right? As well as being on social media and kind of just building their brand up to be more than just this mom and pop store sitting on this corner here.
Yeah, yeah. What was when I think about these things and when I see folks like you, and it's funny how technology and the things that I sort of grew up with and was directly connected to, there was a whole generation of people and businesses that weren't connected to that digital world. It
Yes.
evolved and came out of nowhere for all intents and purposes. Business changed over the course of 5 to 10 years dramatically in terms of what you can do online.
Yes.
As part of this process, I want you first to share some tips and tricks that you have in terms of that, because I know a lot of my students have like ideas about what they want to do for a business or how they want to work for a business, or even small businesses that might be watching this webinar. What are some of the high level things that you always advise them to do?
Well, the first thing I'd advise is, with anything that you start, especially within business, you have to understand that there are two brands that you have to manage: your personal brand and your company brand, and those coincide and they intertwine. So you have to be cognizant of what perception of yourself you're putting out, and and how you're building your credibility and your awareness for your business, and then your business has to operate in that same function. So when we speak about personal branding, I tell them, great, we're gonna, write your business plan, but we have to write a personal brand profile for you as well. Because, what do you want to be known for at the end of the day, right? You can build this company and no one know your name, and then, go to another company and no one know that you built that company, right? If Oprah goes somewhere and she tries to build the company, her personal brand is solidified. She can go anywhere and build another company because people know what she stands for and they know what they're getting, right?
Yeah.
So that's that's very important in brand building. So I get a lot of people that say, I don't want to be the face of my company. Well, if your company has no face, then you're not building that connection with your audience. I mean, that's what it's all about today. You have to build that emotional and personal connection with your audience because we buy from people who we have a connection with. Just like Apple, who's the most lucrative brand, arguably the most lucrative brand out there. People will buy socks tomorrow if Apple started selling socks, just because they have that trust with the brand, right? They don't sell the best socks, but be sure that someone will be taking pictures. I bought some Apple socks.
Yeah,
So that's
absolutely. Oh man, that's
exactly.
fantastic advice. There, I really do like the way you approach it and the way you make sure that they're those two distinct pieces. Gone are the days where the business stands alone, so to speak. Now there are people who are the face of the business, right? I think the exception to that are the big companies, right, that sort of create their own aura. But when you're a small and medium-sized company, who you're talking to, who is selling you your product can be just as important as the product itself.
Of
When
course.
you're yeah, and when you're going over those pieces, when you first started out, all right, you were first writing those pieces and you decided you were going to go out on your own and create this consultancy. How did you find people that you wanted to work with?
Well, Shaper, as we met on there, has been a really good avenue for me. And then me going out and networking within the city through meetups and some contacts, some people that I already knew. Um, so I'm just being out there networking. I believe I'm a good judge of character, so I can kind of feel someone out. And like right now, I'm putting on another branch of services. So I'm going to have virtual consultants now as well. because I'm expanding and I have a lot of business outside of New York City in New Jersey. So I'm actually, doing interviews and stuff like that for actual virtual consultants, people, other people that are in branding or social media.
Yeah, yeah. And gone are the days too when you needed to have the physical workspace, right?
Yeah.
This is my office. You see, I got all kinds of stuff going on here. This is like my space over here. You got this. I always have my mandatory posters up on the wall from all my ideas that come out of my head. When you're talking about finding those people, how do you find the best ones? And I'm going to get into some questions from my students here because they have some really great questions. They're always hilarious. So they come up with some of the most hilarious questions. I have to ask you some funny questions. I always ask all my guests some kind of crazy question. So get ready.
Okay, no problem. Yes, so, I just really it's all about putting out a certain blueprint, right? So I give them the vision for the company and see where their aspirations are and where they fall in line with that, right? So I always tell people, anyone that I prospectively joining the company, that you're not going to be an employee. I need you to think as an entrepreneur. So I want people that are that have that boss and mentality and not that employee mentality where they're always putting 110% in. So that's the type of people that I look for. So all the people that work with me now, I have a videographer, I have a web designer, I have someone who does logo and visual identity, and I'm the brand consultant. So everyone has does their own thing, and they work. This is something that they do. This is their specialty. So we work on projects together simultaneously. So we don't all work remotely, and then once or twice a month we will get together for those new and incoming projects.
Yeah, yeah. All right, I want to dive into my questions for my students, and then I'm going to check social media here too at the same time, just to see if there's anything that's come through. Usually I get something on several different channels. So I'll start out with one of my students' questions, which was along personal branding. She said, what if I already have a presence online and I want to change that presence into something else so that it can support the business that I've got? How do I change that?
Okay, great. Well, that's a great question. So everyone that has an Instagram, that has a Facebook, you are already a personal brand. It's just all about how you're projecting that brand out to the world, right? So if it's something where that's not too far off, or even if it is, you would just have to change the content around from what you currently have there.
Okay, great. And what if they really, truly, really, as a lot of students do, need to clean it up? What's the best way to do that?
Definitely have to clean it up, and just have someone else look at it, from outsider standpoint, right? So have a stranger look at it and say, okay, maybe you have a product or service that you're selling. Is this in line with my product? Does this speak to the values and things of the product that I'm going to be putting out? And if the answer is no, then you definitely need to clean some things up, and just keep it as clean as possible.
Excellent. Another one of my students had a great question too. I kind of cherry picked some of the really good ones, and I'll get to the funny one here in a few minutes. He was asking if how much experience do I really need before I jump off on my own and decide to launch a business or to be a consultant for someone else, or to do something like you're doing, Kevin?
Okay, great. Well, that's a great question as well. So it depends. It really doesn't, as far as experience goes, right? You never know how much more you know than the next person, right? And I found that. So things that you think people would know, they may not have any clue about. So you really have to gauge it by going out and asking questions and stuff like that, and see, well, how much of the knowledge that I have, can be used, are people looking for. So when I go out and I consult someone, or I do a brand audit, I kind of ask a certain type of questions to people to see what their knowledge base is. And then from there, I know, okay, we can fix this, we can fix that. So, I mean, in terms of having a certain knowledge base and when to know to actually go out there. You'll never know, how much more you know than the next person until you sit down with them and, have a conversation with them.
Yeah, yeah. How'd you choose this? You were writing a business plan, you were doing other things, you were, let's say a writer, like you're a really great writer, obviously, getting good grades for the students and doing other types of writing too. How did you decide to move in this direction?
Okay. Well, I just having a lot of people around me that wanted to start businesses. And you'd be surprised how many people, even existing businesses today, don't have business plans, right? So I would say, okay, oh, you're going to start do you have a business plan? And they'll say no. The other day I spoke with the company. They've been around for 20 years. They do not have a business plan. They've never had a business plan. But in the winter months, their business is really slow because they don't know how to monetize things. They rent out inflatables basically. So of course in the summertime, people are going to be out in parks and yards. You can rent out the inflatables, but in the wintertime, there's really unless you have a space.
Not up here in the north.
Yeah, of course not. Of course not. Yeah. So I just seeing a lot of people, non-business owners, that were struggling. I said, I'm going to see, what I can do as far as, from a customer, looking outside from a customer standpoint, and then looking at it as, how would I build this if this was my business? So each and every client that I have, I look at their business and say, okay, cool. If I was doing this, how would I approach this? Or, okay, from a customer standpoint, if I'm your customer, will I be satisfied to make a decision, on whether I'm going to buy your product or service?
Sure. Okay, a couple questions now. My students are great. They always, ask me crazy questions in class about their ideas. One of the questions my student had, which I loved, was, how much is your beard a part of your brand?
That's a great question. I really like that question as well. I actually, my logo designer he surprised me with a logo, and I'll send it over to you. And it's my face, my hair, because this is my hair. It's not a hat, and my beard.
Yes.
So it's actually a big part of my brand. I'm actually going to be starting a show much like this one, where I'll be spotlighting the different entrepreneurs and the different industries in New York City and just around the country. Like right now, one of my clients is out of Sri Lanka, and we're building a cigar business. So I want to have him come over here because he has a house in Canada. So I want him to come to New York City, and we'll speak about his brand and how he came about to want to build his market up in New York City.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, the international world with the web and all the things that we can do on the internet now. I was just wondering, how accessible is the international market for students who might have ideas for businesses, or even as a consultant, as you're doing right now? How accessible has that been, and what are some of the tips to get into that space?
Well, that Shaper has been a great platform for that as well. I don't know if I told you, but I actually met with the founder of Shaper a few months ago. So when I first started with Shaper, it was kind of like a dating app, if you're familiar with those. You go on and you can only search within a certain radius of where you are, right? So when I met with Ludovic, who is the founder of Shaper, he actually had, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he created Tinder. So he basically said, at some point you're going to be able to search and connect with people globally. So now that function has been put into place, and I've actually been connecting with people via Shaper from London and other parts of the world.
Yeah. And I just want to show it just so people get a reference for what we're talking about. This is their website, and that's up here on the screen. And I love talking about stuff like this because I think it's a really cool way for entrepreneurs to connect to each other. And because it's on your phone, like you have this access to it if you're between classes or you're between projects or between meetings or whatever, you can, meet the 10 or 12 people that it's going to offer you for that day, decide whether you're connected. I also like the way that it focuses on hashtags, which are basically interests, and it doesn't do that. So I was specifically, when I put my profile together, I was really careful to only do like 2 or 3, because I found that otherwise I didn't stay focused on my brand. I didn't stay focused on entrepreneurship education. For a while, I've done all these I set up all these innovation labs for large corporations, and that was a part of my business. But now that I've shifted to academia, I'm so much more interested in optimizing education for entrepreneurship, because oftentimes it's about books, or it's about concepts or things like that, or even just building a business plan might be part of the class. But there's a level beyond that. In my mind, that level is mindfulness. So that how do you actually manifest something? Because that's what mindfulness is, like manifesting a positive person versus a negative person. How am I manifesting a positive organization versus an organization that's particularly selfish? What am I manifesting in that context? So I feel like Shaper is a great way to direct that in a specific way with those keywords. What are some of the things that you've picked up from the Shaper app?
Well, Shaper it's a really great thing. So as far as, I don't get a lot of clientele from there, but I do make a lot of build a lot of relationships where, I'm getting other clientele, or I'm helping other people on there. Yeah. So, it's not just one way. I've met a few people on Shaper, we've become friends and stuff like that, and I've helped them with endeavors if it wasn't, because I used to write resumes and stuff like that. So before I just began to focus on just entrepreneurs, I also had someone that did interviews, coaching interviews for people that are looking for jobs, and we, because I do write, so I had resumes and cover letters and cleaning up people's LinkedIn's as well. So that's another leg of things that I was helping people with on Shaper.
Great. I have a question for you, popped into my mind based on our conversation. At what point do you decide to carve services away? In other words, you're one of those people like myself. When I was heavily involved in the sustainability movement and the ecological side of the work that I was doing, I also found myself still engaged with technology and all those pieces. At what point do you carve things away to really focus? And do you have advice on when and where to do that?
Okay. Yeah, sure. I mean, at the end of the month, when we're going over, what was our workload this month, right? Was it more so, writing business plans, or was it doing one-on-one personal brand coaching? What's working? What's the bulk of our work looking like? And where can we scale back on some things? So I added the videography because with Instagram and Facebook Live and things of that nature, that's something that's becoming very popular. So we do social media management and curate content for a few of the companies that we are working with now, but everything is going towards video. People are going to watch a video before they read an infographic. You know what I'm saying? And that's just the way things are. I'd rather watch a video than sit there and read an infographic. Even if it's 60 seconds, right?
Oh, I like it. You know what? It just popped into my head, and unfortunately things aren't there yet, but I know they're going to get there. There are all these live platforms, right? But none of them are really good at like putting it forward like an Instagram story, or putting it forward in those kinds of ways. And I know it's in the pipeline, just because usually I'm thinking like 1 or 2 steps ahead of whatever the technology is currently doing. And there's a real interest in like exclamations and like call outs and all kinds of things like that happen. And I like live production. Like I like live interviews, and I'm much more about the run and gun style. I've always been that way. In 2010, I did a 8-month road trip around the world, around the country, 48 states. The goal was to have 1,000 interviews with people who are doing sustainability work. And I accomplished that goal, but it was just as YouTube was happening, right? So that the whole possibility of being YouTube wasn't there yet. So I was already running and gunning before the platform was ready for it. And now it's a whole different thing. So I'm revisiting all those places that I went to, but now from an entrepreneurship perspective. So now it's like not eco road trip, it's the entrepreneur trip. So it's a really interesting like progression. And I think when you're talking about branding for small companies, if they can figure out an angle of how they become known for something, even if it's only locally known for, you know, really knowing cheeses or really knowing how to put fabrics or really knowing something that's related to their business, it's helpful for them. What are some of the ways that you've helped companies get to that place?
Well, you know, as I said, when I approach a client, then I always look at the project as if it's my business, right? So I try to add a twist and trying to get them to think differently. You know, they can go online and you know, print out a business plan and write the business plan themselves, right? But you know, I get them. I believe so. I get them to think in a certain way, right? You know, think about your competition, right? But you know, what is your competition doing? How do the customers, their customers feel about what they're doing, right? And then you have to tweak it. You know, you have to do what they're doing better, or you know, find something else that you can add to your repertoire. Like, you know, I always speak about like Uber and Airbnb, right? They disrupted entire markets, and you know, they don't own a house and they don't own not one vehicle, right? So you know, and you know, they just sat down and said, okay, well, you know, technically they are technology companies, but they're really a cab service, and it's really kind of like, you know, subsidiary of, you know, a hotel service, but they don't own any real estate or they don't own any inventory of vehicles, right? So you got to think outside the box, and you got to be aware of what your competition is doing, and you know, and stay abreast, and know who your target audience is. You know, the better you know your target audience, the more you can tailor, you know, your products to them, and you know, your customer service to them.
Absolutely, absolutely, and figuring out target markets is a really important skill. And I'm excited that that's one of the things that you're doing, because that's a whole webinar unto itself. It's a whole, of course unto itself. Yeah. But to leave things out, because time's already flown by. We had 2 minutes left in the show today. I'm super excited to have had you. If you were going to tell the folks who are watching this webinar to sort of focus in on something related to branding or personal branding, what is the number one thing that they should consider as we close the show out here and sort of wrap things up?
Well, the number one thing is when you decide to start your business, you know, put the right people around you that give you the right energy, and they're kind of along the same lines and moving in the same steps that you are moving, in order to be successful, because things will get hard. You know, nothing is done overnight, and it's really, you know, really have to, it's going to grow you as a person, you know, as you grow your company. So that's why I say personal branding is key. So, you know, put those key people around you that are going to motivate you to keep pushing when things get rough.
That's perfect. Yeah, I love that. And I don't know if you got a chance to see any of the other webcasts and stuff. Dawn Karen yesterday was talking about that and her way of like staying positive and connecting to positivity. So nothing helps more than when you surround yourself with that. What a great way to end the show today. Kevin, thank you so much for being on the show. Kevin Horton is here. His website, just in case you guys need to stop by, is Soy Bee Consulting, which is Stand on Your Brand is what that stands for. Stand on Your Brand Consulting. And check them out. They are a fantastic organization. And as you've seen, Kevin has great insights related to small businesses and getting them off the ground. It's been a pleasure today. Kevin, thanks again.
Thanks for having me. I hope you guys got some good content out of it.
Definitely, definitely. All right, everyone. Ciao. Thanks again. Ciao.